Welcome to Harvey County Talk, a program brought to you by Harvey County Digital. Harvey County Talk, where we can talk about any public policy or with any public official without stooping to or duping you with the usual partisan politics. I'm your host, Lance Gormley. Our sponsor for this episode is Newtonians Against Higher Water Rates. Newtonians Against Higher Water Rates is a committee made up of local like-minded community members who are asking you to just say no. Call or email one of your commissioners, attend a meeting, call or email one of your friends, let them know. Call or email anyone you can and tell them to just say no. No to an increase to our water rates. Newtonians Against Higher Water Rates. Well, as stated in the past, hold on, I always forget to do this. Rod, would you turn your light on? Flick that switch. There's a little switch right there. Oh, right here on the side is the light. Yeah. Sorry about that.
Okay.
We turned our light on. All right. As anybody that's been following the water rates issue discussion, you've probably seen a podcast that we did recently, which was the first part in a 3-part series where we promised the community that we would break down kind of the situation that we're in, that we would bring all parties to the table, and that we would engage with the community in a way that would help to educate and promote positive communication through all parties, through city staff, through our commissioners, and also give the public an outlet to speak. So we have 2 guests on the program today, Mayor Leroy Koehn and Commissioner Rod Kreie. I'm not going to go into a whole bunch of detail with introducing you guys and giving backstories and everything, because if anybody's been following Harvey County Digital, then they know who you are. You know, if they're wanting to be informed and engaged, they know who you are. Also, I'd like to mention that our purpose for this program is to make sure that community members can have access to as much information as they possibly can from all sides, and then they can come to the decision and make their own conclusion. I'm not a publisher. I don't go through and look at both sides and then reach some kind of a definitive conclusion and spoon feed you information. What I do is provide an avenue for different parties to come to the table, and then you write your story. So, well, obviously, you guys know why you're here today. We are discussing the water rate issue again. And it seems like anytime there's any discussion regarding anything involving this issue, that passions run high. Would you guys agree?
Sure. Yeah.
I would also like to state that as this discussion has unfolded, and I've been watching it very close because I would like for this to be a productive discussion where all parties are respected and we reach a positive conclusion that's beneficial for all of us in the community so we can move together in unity, as stated in the very first podcast that we did regarding this issue. I know Rod and Leroy very well. I've been involved in trying to understand, learn, and grow and be a productive member of my city and government. And these 2 men have opened their doors to me on countless occasions. And I know both of them to have integrity. And I would say that integrity is something that you absolutely want from your elected officials. We may not always agree with the decisions that they've made in the past, and you might get blamed for decisions that you didn't even have anything to do with. But you guys have always taken that responsibility head on, and you've always done it with diplomacy, and you've done it with care. And I have watched both of you, and I appreciate both of you and what you do as commissioners, my city commissioners. And I support you. I just want to say that straight out. When calling you and asking if you could come on the program and we could just get this out on the table again, and you both were willing, I don't know if anybody in the community could ask for commissioners that would be better in just trying to come on a program. If somebody asks you something from the paper, you're willing to respond. You do your best to try to let the public know. So without further ado, I just got to ask a question. Are you guys just absolutely enthralled? You're just happy that there's a possibility that we might see an increase to our water rates, right? You guys are just as ecstatic as everybody else, right? I'm sorry. I'm throwing out a joke. It's not funny, but it is it's sarcastic funny. I don't think that this is something that anybody wants to happen, and I just want to move forward in the discussion knowing that. So just for the public and anybody listening, how did this discussion come about? We know that the city manager came one day to a city commission meeting, if I'm just the average person in the public, and said there's a possibility that we might need to raise our rates. Can you guys just explain a little bit about that? If somebody'd like to take the lead on how did this come about?
I'll follow Leroy's.
Leroy?
Well, so our city manager came to us and said there was a possibility that we may have to raise the water rates. And for one thing, our water rates have not increased since 2015, so it's been 8 years. But as you all know, inflation is running rampant. All of our costs are going up, all of our wages. We have a terrific increase in pressure in raising wages. Here's an example. So I think we have 13 employees in our public works department, and we're down 4 or 5 employees now because, for example, one of them was lured away by another smaller community with a wage increase of $10 to $12 an hour, more than what they were making. And so, just like in our company, even if we would give a 7 to 10% wage increase this year, that means that our employees are just going to tread water. They're not going to get an increase because of the cost of inflation and how it's gone up. So, just to have this discussion, that is only prudent. I know some people have said, why are you even talking about it? Well, the pressure is on for all costs that are increasing. So what are we supposed to do? Just stick our head in the sand and ignore it? We can't. We have to be prudent with our resources, and so we have to have this discussion.
So does this just really come back to, I'm not looking to point the finger at something, but is the culprit inflation? Is this something that would just came up due to unforeseen circumstances, or how? I know that you mentioned that we went along for a period of time in which there was no increase seen. So you mentioned retainment of staff. What are some other reasons?
It's really multifaceted. We just turned 150 years old, and we have infrastructure that's 100 years old, and I think oftentimes, when pressure's put on public officials to hold down taxes and to keep lower utility rates that they have control over. I think people forget, that when you have aging infrastructure, an easy choice is to defer maintenance. And cities, Newton isn't the only city that's done that, and it's not anybody's fault. And something else that I think that oftentimes your citizens forget is that, like, we're their neighbors, and we don't own the city. We don't ever do anything that doesn't affect us directly, our friends, family. We are public servants that aren't compensated, really. $200 a month, I think, is what we get. It's so low I don't even notice it, really. But we're willing to whenever you get businessmen that really, and businesswomen that know a little bit about planning and things like that. It's really important to them before they say yes to volunteer and to be a community leader automatically they have to care for the people around them, because they are friends, family, neighbors, and things do affect them. So. To me, it's, and I'm kind of rambling here because it's a great big circle.
Yeah.
The aging infrastructure, has been ignored over the years. But the current commissioners, it's important to us that we put a little bit of time, effort, and financial resources into making sure that we minimize, water stoppages and sewers that back up and things like that. But the point I'm making is that we are friends and neighbors too. It's not us against them.
And on top of that, all of us live in our own homes, and any increases, whether it's a mill levy increase, whether it's water rates, sewer rates, it affects us. So it's not like we're just happy to even consider having the conversation.
Yeah.
We're not.
Yeah.
The other thing is that we're working really hard is to look long-term for this city, not just 1 or 2 years and have knee-jerk reactions to things that come along. We want to be proactive. We want to look ahead. We want to methodically plan out how we want the city to look over the next 5, 10, 15 years. And so we do this, with a long-range picture in mind. And another piece, I know we were talking about inflation, but here are some specific costs that have increased here. In the last 2 years, pipe has increased 67 to 80%, just the cost of it, and we lay a lot of it. Meters are up 21 to 26%. Meter pits and setters are 48 to 53% increase. Repair clamps, 81%. Fuel is up 33%. Chemicals, 53 to 64%, and we use a lot of those chemicals. Sewer saw motors are up 14%. Enzymes are up 28%. Insurance is up 13%. Equipment costs 25 to 55%. And those are just a few.
Okay, you're honing in on something. I don't mean to interrupt, Mayor, but I want to say something for the public. I'm picking up on something here. We got into this, and so far there's been quite a few problems that you've mentioned. Okay, so and you've mentioned that it's not just one thing, that there's so many things involved in one. But the way this process is supposed to work is that your city manager is alerted of a problem. The problem is a number of things that we're currently discussing. They then have the responsibility to publicly go to the commission, so that way the citizens can hear what's being said and address that situation. So far in this process, the only thing that has taken place is city management has brought it up in public meeting that stated that we might have an issue, and these are our reasons why, without going into a ton of detail.
They didn't just bring it up recently.
Yes, this has been something that's on the horizon.
This was coming for 3 or 4 years.
And when you mentioned that, so I'm trying to give it just kind of under. I don't want to make one thing the culprit, but I know as I've been watching this happen, and we've been watching, the 8 mil increase, or the increase at the grocery store, the increase everywhere. We've got these increases, and you just threw out a number of facts that right now you're contending with. So as a commissioner, I know that you were elected to do the job, but this is a part of the job that then becomes very difficult. I mean, you both are dealing with a problem that did not exist a year ago, 2 years ago. Now all of a sudden, you were on a plan through infrastructure improvements, and maybe everything was going according to plan, and then all of a sudden, our plans are changing, mostly due to the cost of these things increasing. You mentioned employee wages. When's the last time that those people have had a raise?
They get a cost of living.
Okay.
I think this year it was somewhere around 1%.
Between 1% and 2%.
Yeah.
So,
Which doesn't even start to keep up with inflation.
No, they went backwards.
And that's why it's real easy for them to get plucked off and go to some other community.
yeah, and that's not a good thing, because we know that it's difficult to retain people in general in the private sector, let alone the public sector. And then when there's people people move around a lot more with jobs. So not saying that you're beholden to your employee, but you have to offer them a decent wage. And if they're looking like they're not getting any kind of a cost of living increase that's justifiable to the rate of inflation, then they will go somewhere else because those people are willing to pay them more. So that's a really
Simple
viable argument.
Simple math.
That's economics.
The other thing that I would like to say too is that all of our discussions about the water rates, the sewer rates, have all been done in public. You know, we've never had any private discussion in any executive sessions or in private.
Yeah.
We've always had these discussions in public.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to make, because I know there's been talk that maybe that's not the case, but it has always been in public.
Yeah. Well, and that's what in the past program I was talking about things that what have we heard, and that was specific.
Yeah.
Because I know that there's not really a whole lot right now that the public knows, or even that you guys have had any discussion about. The last I checked, the city management was supposed to go back to the drawing board. They were supposed to provide a few more options that you guys were going to entertain, and then that would allow you to have more public input from that process. And then so this idea that you guys are going to raise our water rates is not necessarily even a done deal. I mean, we're not even into that process of the discussion yet, are we?
No.
Okay. No. So when we hear things in the public, and you think that's spot on, but you might not go and verify that to be true or not, and you just entertain the rumor, then how much more difficult does that make your guys' job?
Yeah, well, I want to talk a little bit about management and their relationship to the commissioners. You know, I think I've been on maybe 6 years, something like that. So I came onto the commission right after they raised water rates the last time, and I did a little checking this morning because I'm a business guy. I kind of got my I had a feeling for what inflation was. Actually, when you include last year, which was 9.1%, the inflation rate, if you add it up together from 2015 to now, it's been 22.67%. And I remember us asking management at that time to suck it up, to look for anything they can without getting rid of employees, without coming off of the infrastructure improvement plan. Cut everything to the bone that you can, and it's unbelievable to me that in that period of time we haven't increased water rates. Yet the total inflation increase during that period of time is almost 23%. So you know, we've had a lot of people say to us, "Hey, you guys just need to suck it up." I mean, my family has sucked it up. We've cut to the bone. Well, we've cut to the bone too. It's a tribute to management that they went in and worked hard enough that they could not have to recommend us to take a look at replenishing the water fund for that long, because you know, everything has gone up, and that's really kind of a low number, because if you take a look at some of the stuff that Leroy just talked about, I mean, there is an inflation. Last year, inflation for you and me was 9.1% on an average. The adjusted inflation rate for things that cities buy was like 14.1. So that number there is even higher. And from a legal standpoint, Kansas law, I mean, we're not allowed to run the water department at a below zero balance. You know, we have the responsibility, and we don't have the luxury of just saying we don't want to raise water rates. I mean, we have to take a look at what we've got to do to ensure that when you turn the faucet on, water comes out. When you flush the toilet, you know, that works. I don't even know if there's alternatives. If you take a look at how many people we need to make something work, you have X number of hours. Let's say that's with 14 employees, say 30,000 hours. And so if we cut employees, we still have 30,000 hours of work to do. I mean, I guess we could back off the infrastructure improvement program and just hope nothing breaks. But you know.
But then what usually happens if we do that?
Yeah.
Then when something does break,
Cost
then the
you way
cost
more
is
money.
even higher than if we maintain.
it
It's kind
is.
of like maintaining your car.
Yes, yes.
Regular
yes.
service.
Then it's our fault that it happened.
Yeah, there-
I mean, there's a balance.
There is a
that
balance.
We're trying to.
There is a balance, and that's something that I want to hit on. I've been, please, if you want to be brought up to speed, go to my Lance Gormley for Newton Facebook page. I have an extensive breakdown that's in 7 parts of our utility bill. That is very, very factual, good information. It came on 6 months. It took 6 months to acquire all of that in detail and study that out. So please indulge me. Don't make my work in vain. Bring yourself up to speed and realize that at this point in time, what you guys are saying is that we're addressing a whole new issue. That we had something the way that it was. We were on point. We were moving along. We were running a lean city by your guys' opinion. Okay, right? The belief. And so from there then is that, are you really saying that we're at a point in time where there's just not really anything more to cut? And if we don't do something, then we're going to wind up being in a situation where people are not going to be able to be provided the services that they all are paying for?
Well, I honestly, I don't even know. There are just certain things that have to happen for things to work. If you don't do certain things, and there's lots of them in a mechanical system that will malfunction, break, burst. You don't have the luxury of, if something wasn't done right 78 years ago, back then they used types of pipe that were real susceptible to
breaking
things
down.
happening that
Shorter
don't
lifespan.
happen now.
Yeah.
And we have a program for replacing all that old stuff and putting stuff in that's going to last for 200 years. You work with the technology you have at the time, but in my mind, kind of what got this all started was when we redid the sewage treatment plant out there and we implemented the 38%. If you look at your bill, if you look at your sewer charge, then the sewer debt charge is 38% of that number. And that's when people, I'll be totally honest. When I moved here from Ulysses, when I got my first city bill, it was like, holy crap. I really was shocked. It was shocking. But different city. Out in western Kansas, you just drill a hole and you get 600 gallons a minute of water.
So let's get into fair comparisons.
Yeah.
Okay, one thing that is a big pet peeve of mine with this entire discussion is for somebody to make that make the claim. Well, over here it's so much cheaper, and over here I don't pay that, and over here and if there's anything I say, it's truthfully that in comparison to communities around us and in the greater Kansas area and the greater national average, we really are not that far off.
So right here is a chart of what our water rates are compared to the surrounding community. So this is for 600 cubic feet, which is 5,000 gallons. So Newton's rate is $41.45. The highest rate in the area is Halstead at $87.75. You've got Bel Air at $56.52. You've got Keachai at $51.45. You've got Mays at $41.98, and Newton is at $41.45. And then you have 4 or 5 that are lower. Augusta's $37.93. McPherson is $31.86, and so forth. So we're about in the middle for the actual water rate.
It's the sewer that's killing us,
It's
and
the sewer.
I pointed this out. The sewer upgrade fee is killing us. So then the plan was at that point in time was that that when this sewer upgrade is paid off, why would we need to keep that money? We want to give that money back. We know that that's been a problem. I know both of you have communicated this. Now we're in a situation where, well, our actual services are going crazy. And this is the thing for me is it's everywhere, and we all are experiencing it. At the minute we walk out the door, our energy it is across the board. So what would make this any different? I mean, I'm asking you guys, why would I be able to, if I was somebody who wanted to say, you know what, my inflation in my life, everything that's costing me more, it just needs to stop here. Yeah. You guys just need to stop this from happening. If I was a person that had just come to that breaking point, and this was just the straw that broke the camel's back, and I was like, you know what, I'm done. Mm-hmm. Can we really do that with this? I mean, is this something that we can say as a community, no, we're not going to make whatever investments we need to make into our infrastructure because we literally will start having problems? And your guys' job as commissioners is to make sure that the infrastructure is maintained for me. So when I flush my toilet, it goes. When I turn on my water, it better sure as heck come on. Yeah. You know, and that's your job. How many people would be at your doorstep if right now their entire 2 blocks were down because a pipe broke and we didn't have the money for somebody to show up and fix it? I'm just saying. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm playing kind of devil's advocate on that, but just, I mean, what are some of the other issues that you guys are experiencing? Because this is a lot of, seems a lot of different things all at once moving in unison with one that you're trying to draw some kind of a conclusion on.
Well, when you talk about, because it's on the water and the sewer bill, is that sewer plant upgrade fee and repayment. So, you know, we're making an extra principal payment every year, and the original plan was to have it paid off in 26. Well, we could stop making that extra payment, and then it'd be paid off in 33. But the plan was, and the reason that we decided to not give that 38% back when it was paid off, is that we wanted to save the city like $2 million in interest. And it just made sense to continue to use that fee to pay down that debt, not have to pay that interest, and to save all of us $2 million. That's a big number.
Yes, it is.
So we could stop making that extra payment every year, but then it wouldn't be paid off till 33, plus we'd have to pay that extra interest money.
And I agree that I personally, once again, believe that was, in my opinion, the best decision that was made at the time. So kudos, right? Well, I mean, that's your job, right? Okay. Yeah. I just keep pointing out the fact that, I don't know, personally, I'm going to put it in my home context here, and to say, you know, with inflation, I'm not anybody that's made of means necessarily. So there are things that I'm not able to do today that I was able to do a year ago because I can't afford to do those things. I have to explain to my kids. I have to say, hey, we did this last year, but we can't do this year. And of course, they're not going to understand inflation, right? But the idea is that, well, we're working with less money for different reasons. When you go to the store, and we'll talk about eggs again, and I'm paying $8 for, you know, eggs when I was paying $1.50. Okay, somewhere we're going to be in this situation with this regardless. Is that a correct statement? Mm-hmm. That because of the rate of inflation, this water bill, as we call it, is not going to go unaffected.
We can't pretend that prices aren't higher. You know, I mean, that's not the reality that a city commissioner or a city manager or a director of public works, that's just not their reality.
So if I was to, I'm gonna, because we know each other well enough. If I was to look at either one of you and say, you want to raise my rates.
Yeah.
I do not.
No. We don't want to raise your rates. We don't want to raise your taxes. No. And it's painful, and to think that both of us and all 5 of us have not spent many hours contemplating this, looking at it from every single angle of how to deal with it. We have, and we have taken, I think we've gone to great lengths to look at it from all angles. And, you know, back to the water rates here, let's say in the next 12 months,
the end of January here, we're going to have an open work session that anybody is welcome to come to and discuss. We could have a 1-year reprieve. We could not make that extra payment, okay? And we could use that money to help keep the water fund whole for this year. But you're just delaying it for a year. Those costs are still there. The other thing I'd like to point out is that, the city has had about 210 employees, give or take 2 or 3, for the last, as long as I've been on the commission. And so we have more and more work that needs to be done. We have increased miles of parks to maintain, of streets to maintain, of sewer lines, water lines, all that. As developments grow, all of that grows, and yet we're keeping the same amount of employees. And so it's not like, I hear, well, you guys just need to cut. Look, we've been doing that as we go. Every year we challenge the staff. Look, you need to find ways to cut. And they do. And at some point, you can't cut more. Just like Rod was saying, let's just say there's 30,000 hours of work that needs to be done. You can cut your employees. That work still needs to be done. Or
then you're paying overtime.
Then you're paying overtime, which means your costs go up even more.
Yeah, and then there's all kinds of things like injuries, possibility of injuries increase, liabilities.
Employee morale.
Yeah.
I mean,
nobody wants to spend their life at work.
No.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, so if everywhere I'm looking, things are increasing. I remember looking at it seems like people want to couple this with the 8 mil increase. Oh, we just had an 8 mil increase, and now we're having this increase. And given the fact that I remember watching that argument very close, and I remember just Chief mentioning some things and differences of what something cost just to outfit the same officer. I mean, we're talking thousands and thousands of dollars. That doesn't include the fact that the sheriff's department has to recreate ways to buy vehicles, really, honestly, because there's no vehicles to buy. And then you're buying used vehicles with the same package that costs more than the new one with the new package. It's incredible. And I want to point out something. One thing I wanted to mention during this interview is, has anybody been reading the news from surrounding areas just this last couple weeks?
Yeah, sure have.
Rate increases.
Valley Center rate increase. Wichita's already had this discussion. Everybody is doing it. And it's interesting, just with accountability in government, we talk about wasteful spending. Everything that anybody buys from any department is how much they spend is public information, right? So it's very difficult to be wasteful in general. And I've done a lot of I try to research a lot that's going on just to say, well, is there wasteful spending here? So when you are not in a wasteful spending situation and your city is working well and running on all cylinders, then when we are confronted with a situation like this, you don't have any you don't have any money to cut because you're already running lean.
Yeah.
Right? So then when this happens, you have to do this. There has to be something done. So at this point, we know that something has to be done, right? For the plethora of problems that we were confronting. And I talked in the past, and I've talked with lots of people in the public just to see what things they think they've heard or things they've heard as far as what some options are. And I'm waiting for some official notifications to come out from the city of, well, these are your options. Mm-hmm. What might be a timeline on that? Do you guys think? When do you know when the city management is planning on getting back with you guys with some definitive options to say these are what we can do, so then people can know that they can contact you and discuss those options?
Oh, I would think.
I mean, has there even been any discussion about that yet?
Late February, probably.
Probably.
Okay, so it's not like this is going to be decided today.
No, this isn't an easy answer.
We're going to pick through this process.
I mean, they're looking at everything, and honestly, we would keep talking about other communities, and comparing ourselves with other communities. I mean, it's a different set of variables for each community. For us to compare is,
Not
I mean,
correct.
we are
Yeah.
where we are. You know how we got there is no one's fault, and I mean it's just like we don't have the luxury of saying, well, this isn't our reality, because this is our reality.
Well, I just was saying that in reference to, I guess I'll clarify that it's if it's good for the
not
goose,
just
it's
us.
good for the
It's
gander,
not just
right?
us,
It's like
yeah.
we want to point out and say that none of these other places. That's the argument that an individual's making, is that all these other places are not raising theirs, but we're raising ours. That's not even a justifiable argument.
But here's the deal: we keep talking about expenses, and we're in an old town with old town expenses. There are new communities that are going up, and subdivisions that are going up. Once we put the infrastructure in those subdivisions, which does cost money, and most of the time the developer pays for the internal part of that stuff. We pay for intersection stuff like that. But once that's done, it doesn't cost the taxpayers anything for a long time, because it's all new. But look at our community. I mean, it's an older community. It's like a house that's been added on to 75 times.
Yep.
You know, you end up with the engineers are really good, but it's not easy just to add on and add on and add on, and you still got all your old stuff.
Got to replace
So
things.
we're an old community with old expenses. We're doing a really good job right now, and we're on the cusp of some really cool things happening. You see a lot of building going on right now. Leroy keeps his finger on that a lot better than I do. I'm on the industrial development side, where we've really been weak at, and it's really no one's fault, because whenever you're recruiting companies, it's a combination of hard work, organization, good people, and there's a little bit of luck involved. And now if you really do a good job, you can increase that luck factor. And we have done that. But we don't have enough revenue. As our expenses have grown, you throw a little inflation on top of that. And the fact of the matter is that our assessed valuation hasn't kept up. You and I have talked about this. If your assessed valuation doesn't increase higher than the rate of inflation, then the money has to come from somewhere, or you have to reduce your level of services. It's such an easy computation for people to understand. So we put our efforts in not only into holding expenses down, but how do we create more revenue without having to raise water rates? You know, the simple matter is that we need more money coming into this community, and we need other people to be paying that. And I don't want Leroy's taxes to go up. I don't want my taxes to go up. The only way to make that happen is to bring people in, put in new things, and let them pay taxes, because a lot of what we do is a fixed cost. I mean, once you cover things that we pay for every day and that we budget for, when you bring in new revenue, then that lowers that margin and that gap between what we have and what we need. And if somebody else is paying for that, I mean, that's the solution, and that's what we've really worked. And I would say we've done a really good job, Leroy, at putting ourselves out there in a way that people saw us. And now we're in a position where that's getting ready to change. You know, somebody kept saying historical increase in millage, which, you know, if we would have gone up a little bit every year on an average basis, you know, it wouldn't have been historic.
Yeah, but even then, I hate it. The optics is crazy,
but
because
this is going to be a historic increase in valuation, and that is the answer.
And I think one of the things that's been really important for Rod and I is to really key in on the commercial and industrial businesses, either growing organically our current companies that are here, or bringing in new companies, because that assessed property valuation is 2.5 times higher than the homeowners. And that's why we want to key in on those and expand that tax base with that industrial and commercial development. That's the only way. Otherwise, if we just want to hone in on new housing developments, guess what? It's on the homeowner's back is where the cost is going to be when you talk about your tax rates. So that's why I think and we really have laid the groundwork, and it's just now coming to fruition, and that's starting to grow. And I think in the next 2 or 3 years, you'll see some really significant changes here in Newton. But meanwhile, it's the chicken and the egg. People that say, well, you cannot help any of these companies coming in, they have to stand on their own 2 feet. I'm sorry, but that's not the world we live in.
Nope.
Every other community has to help with that process, or guess what? They're going to go to a different community. And we're very well aware of that. And so we're trying to do that balancing act of helping them along, but we need them here, and so we're on the cusp of some really big things. We
really are.
Well, and I'd have to say, over the last 5 years since I went deep into this, if people would just look back to 5 years ago where we were, and then look at all the things that have happened in our community over the last 5 years, I'd say we're doing pretty well. You mentioned the mill levy thing, and I don't know how much to get off track, but a smart guy once told me, a mentor of mine, that government is like reaching into a bunch of a bowl full of fishing hooks and trying to pull one out.
Yeah.
It doesn't just come out. And another wise man once told me, that's a mentor of mine, that government's like a big ship on the ocean. You can't just change anything abruptly. It takes 1 degree at a time. So knowing that both those men that partnered that into my life are both of you, you're going to have to figure out which one said whichever one. But given this situation and knowing that I know that I've heard the talk, maybe they should have just raised the mill 2 mills a year. And it's like, well, did you need to raise it? No, you didn't. And so when you didn't, that allowed me to build trust with my city officials that would say, hey, I'm not just going to raise your mill because I'm going to raise your mill. If I have to, I'll do it. And
that's a commitment we both made. That we're not going to ask for any more.
And I can't hate on. The 8 mil, I can't say. It's like a kick to the stomach for everybody. You guys, everybody in our community, but no more than when I go to the grocery store and I buy some eggs that are outrageously expensive. Okay, so you guys both know me. Okay, you both know that I'm a full-time student. All right, that I have a family, a big family, that I work part-time, right? So I'm on a limited income. Granted, those are all my choices, and I believe that I'm making an investment now for my future, so that's opportunity cost. I'm willing to invest, so it's nobody's deal but my own. That's not what I'm saying. So irrespective of my position and the fact that I'm there, or my perspective of how I got here, whether that's a positive or negative, everything is going up. My groceries are going up. My gas is going up. All of my expenses are going up. And now this. And I think a lot of people in the community feel that way. What do you guys have to say to me?
Well, one of the things we're looking at is to layer things in a way that the people using the minimum don't get the brunt. On a percentage basis, if they pay $10 more, that's a 10% increase, and if somebody uses more water and pays $25 a month more, that might not even be a 10% increase. There's this. It's just hard to find a rate structure that is fair. I go back to being friends and neighbors. That's why it's taken us so long to try to figure this deal out, because we do know that there are people on fixed income that just don't have much, and the last thing in the world we want to do is to rock their world with another $10 a month. We would never want people to think that we thought that was such a small amount that it shouldn't hurt anybody, because we know, my good friend here, Leroy, delivers Meals on Wheels, and he does that so he can stay in contact with those people, and I would assume you've made some really good elder friends that way.
We have.
You know,
The other thing that's part of this conversation too is that, you know, I think it's something like 35% of all the property here in Harvey County is not taxed because it's nonprofit. And so this is one way, and I would certainly like to see, like Rod was saying, I would like to see us protect those minimum users, those people that are on fixed incomes that have a very marginal way to exist, is to protect them. But those that don't pay property taxes anyways, how else can we have them pay what is more fair than to maybe raise their rates a little more? And so, you know, we're gonna look at all ways of doing this, but I hear exactly what you're saying, because there's lots of people that say the same thing. Look, all this stuff is going up, and now you want to raise this again, and we don't want to, but we also have a reality to deal with of what are we going to do? What's the practical, common sense way to make this work? And that's what we're doing.
we did set aside some money for people that it's going to force them to choose between, you know, medicine and food, and there is a process they can go through where the city does have in their budget some assistance for that, and you know, I know that's, I mean, my mother would have qualified for that if you know, back when she was living, and it's a pride thing. I know it's hard to apply for things like that, but that just shows how much we do care and how much we are aware. It's not like we're not in touch with that world at all, and cold and callous, and you know, we're just not at all that. Our service careers would show you that we not only do we care, but we're willing to spend time to help people. And but as city commissioners, you know, I think we owe it to all of the people to try to figure out the best way to be fair and still make sure that we provide a level of service that doesn't drive people away from the community. I'd have to think that, you know, if it's between paying $8 or $10 more a month, or your toilet not flushing, or your water not running, you know, I don't know what that happy medium is, where it's like having, it's like you're buying insurance that stuff is going to work. You know, that's the world Leroy and I live in, and Clint and Rich and Kathy and city staff. You know, it does hurt me when like Leroy said a while ago, that we don't care. I mean, that's why we ran for the office. It's because we care. And
Yeah, you didn't do it for the pay. I don't think.
No, not at all, not at all. And here's something else that worries me. I mean, you know, part of being a good leader, and Leroy and I talk about this a lot, and we've worked real hard with the staff ever since I've been on the commission, and we talk a lot about changing the culture. The culture, to me, is the most important thing you can have in a relationship where you're dealing with the public. And that culture is a culture where Leroy and I remain approachable. Rich and Kathy remain approachable. Clint remains approachable. The city staff remains approachable. And we've went to the end of the earth to try to get information out there and make it accessible. I don't know how many times I've met at Norm's with people that had a problem and that they wanted to solve. I know Leroy does the same thing. Clint, you see him asking constantly, hey, can we get together and talk about it? And I think a lot of times people just want to vent. You know, I mean, they'll go on Facebook and say something. I saw you get attacked the other day on Facebook for.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out even who that person is. And what that does, it really doesn't. I mean, Leroy and I
we know each other so well. That doesn't really deter us, but does it deter somebody that really has a lot to offer to the city?
Absolutely.
I mean, do they look at that and think, I don't want any part of that?
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, that's the sadness to me. And I know we're here to talk about water rates, but it's like that.
It's that fish hook.
Yeah, yeah.
It's the fish hook.
But
they're all interconnected.
But I think it's important. I've just seen it for years. I've worked with so many communities over a period of time. I've been blessed with the ability to kind of figure things out and help people kind of shoot things in the right direction. And one of the things that communities that fail lack is their leaders stepping up and doing what's right. And that's the culture that we're trying to change. We're trying to carve a path before we're out of office that people think, well, you know, I mean, I love Newton and I'm willing to put myself out there. And for a community to be successful, I think that's the most important culture that you can move towards, because since I've been to Newton, I've met so many people that have so much to offer, that just are so unwilling to take that chance.
Yeah, why would somebody want their name smeared as they come out and try to offer the best of themselves to the community?
There's always going to be naysayers,
yeah.
but leaders need to rise above that.
I would also like to say, since I'm the oldest member of the commission, and you know, in the first 2 or 3 or 4 years that I was on the commission, there was, the trust level just wasn't there between us 5 commissioners and city staff, and that's why we now have us commissioners. I think we have the right people in place, and we are building that culture with a trust level between city staff and us 5 elected officials. And that's really, really important. And we've pushed them. We've pushed city staff in a whole variety of ways of being more transparent, of, you know, and what we have received from them is, because they have started to, that trust, that bridge is closing now with, man, they feel it, and they know that we have their back, and they try and have our back. Yeah. And it's not that we're a rubber stamp for what they tell us. Oh, no way.
Well,
we challenge them on a variety of ways.
You want to challenge your city staff to excellence as a commissioner.
Absolutely.
That's exactly
because that's what you do.
We're challenging them to promote the culture that we want.
That's right. And I just want to tell the audience, you know, what you're witnessing, if you're following all of this, is truly just a very beneficial thing, because this is a firsthand account of how government operates, especially our form of government. You have city management, they confront a problem, they publicly come out and they talk to the commission. People in the community, if they have something to say about it or they want more information, they can contact them, they can talk to them, which is exactly what I did. I asked them to come on the program. They didn't have to. They willingly did, because you guys are both just men of integrity. You're men of transparency. I've never known you to be anything different. And I really appreciate you coming on the program. I really appreciate you. I don't know how many times Rod and I are going to have this water discussion, or Leroy. I mean, it's going to be forever, I think. No, but it just, when you guys were talking, it brought up something that my dad always used to say to me, and it just comes into my mind constantly. And it says, you have your want tos and you have your have tos. Make sure that your have tos are covered before you even start thinking about your want tos.
Yeah.
And that might just be kind of a situation that we're in.
Yeah.
So. Well, there you have it, folks. And thanks for listening to this episode of Harvey County Talk. This is Lance Gormley reminding you to be informed, stay informed, get registered if you're not already, and go vote. Good day, good night, or good riddance. Either way, we hope to catch you next time. Tune in or tune out.